GKFX Prime presents the Market Analysis Webinar.
Hello traders, and welcome to another week. It's Dima here. You know what time it is. It's time for market analysis and spotting some great high probability setups in the markets. Hope you're doing well and ready to start another trading week. Let's go through what we've got for this week. And I'm just going to start with looking at what's happened last week and where we're at the moment overall in the market. It's always good to get a sense, get a feel for what the market is doing at the moment and what it's setting up to do, of course, for the week ahead and even future weeks ahead. And what we've got in the market at the moment is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of funny movements and uncertain price action. And let's just have a quick look. You can see, I'll look at a few pairs. We've got Euro CAD here. We've got a lot of ranging weeks. I can look at New Zealand yen here. Again, quite messy here. It was a very big range, uncertain price action. We've got wicks to both sides. What else have we got? Euro Aussie. Again, we're moving upwards, but we are hitting a level here, very large range here. Euro New Zealand looking similar, kind of a bit of a messy price action, not as clear as it could be. Let's also have a look at some majors. Euro dollar here, where in this range last week we had this very, let me just zoom in here on the daily, lots of indecisive price action back and forth in this range. And I can also look at New Zealand dollar, had a similar, didn't it? Look at the weekly, had this inside bar, harami, and again, lots of days where many traders would have been caught off guard, or just you can imagine the emotions that perhaps you were one of them, going through this up and down movement, very slow, laborious, and really messy, very unclean here, very funny candles. You can see no clear trades at the moment. So with that in mind, we are going to have a careful look this time at the markets this week and see where we're at and which ones are the high probability scenarios, which ones we have to be a bit more careful of. So let me go through what I've picked out for this week. Let's just minimize that, get rid of that. Okay, and we've got 8 charts to look at this week. Okay, so I'm going to start with a major, so Aussie dollar. As last week, I am currently bullish on the dollar, and even though we've had a bit of sideways price action last week, that hasn't changed the bias because the momentum is still to the upside. So there's a higher probability that we are still bullish on dollar and therefore bearish on currencies related to the dollar. Right, so what does that mean? Well, if we zoom in here, we've got last week, just like the New Zealand dollar, we've got the indecisive previous week with lots of days of uncertain price action. I think I did mention that if we break here with these lows, we've got new swing lows being formed, and I was looking at a short as well from last week, which we had, but the market didn't go very far and closed more or less where it started the beginning of the week. You can see the open price was here and the close price was here. So we have to be careful here because we don't know where the market is setting up next. But because the bias is bullish on the dollar, I'm still going to go with bearish on Aussie dollar. And if I now look at the daily, we've got this sort of indecisive price action, but we do have lower lows and lower highs since here the beginning of June, and then last week as well. So there is a hint that the market is trading lower. Now I'm going to go to the 4 hour. And now let's have a look. We've got this messy week last week. And what would be really nice would be to see a bit more extra confirmation. So two scenarios I see here, either a break below this level, which would be further confirmation short. So we'll have the market running lower, and then a decent pullback back into this level or zone, if you like, would be a higher probability short opportunity. If I go back to the weekly, I'll be looking at this low right here, if you can see this swing, as the target point. So here it is right here. Now the other scenario is we may come back, the market may go into this range over here, the range of the previous week, and may hit that high, hit these highs right here, and then roll over from there. Now if we get a nice daily swing on the daily candles, and we got a nice bearish candle like this one right here that you can see, once we get that momentum to the downside, that will add the confirmation that we're going lower. So with that, well, let's see how it pans out. It's a bit difficult to say at the moment, so we'll have to see with a few more candles. And also I think there's some Aussie news this week on the calendar, so may want to pair the setup with that and see how it goes. Let's see how the price action develops. Do not rush into this. So again, we're gonna have to really trade carefully. So that's Aussie dollar. Okay, next I think I'm gonna go to another dollar pair. Let's look at the dollar rand. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I did look at this last week or previous week, and I think I was looking at this area for the dollar to bounce from. I had that bullish scenario, bullish intent, where we didn't, you can see that what happened last week is we didn't actually break that. We didn't break this trend line, didn't move higher, and it just broke down and went lower. So now you can see I had this marked up from previous weeks. I'll be looking at this level over here. So if I delete this one, which is no longer valid because we went lower, I'll be looking at something like this into this zone, and then the push higher, and then finally breaking this trend line and moving higher into this high right here. So let's just mark that up. So there's a high, and then the reversal price action in this zone right here, which would be a nice retracement. If I look on the weekly time frame, we had the inside bar here again, and that shows indecisiveness because it did not take out previous week's high or previous week's low. And if it does move lower and take it, that will be a nice turnaround, and we should see from there a push higher. So this is the high probability scenario at the moment. But because of this indecisiveness and the market having traded inside the last week, that calls for a bit more caution. So you may want to see a daily swing. I would like to see at least on the minimum on a 4 hour, a nice push higher with momentum, and that will be the higher probability setup. Okay, right, now let's move on to another minor pair. I'm gonna go at, look at Aussie CAD. Again, I'm gonna start with the weekly, and we can see we've got previous weeks, if not the week before, I think it was a week before that, I was looking to target this level right here, which we didn't do. The market went higher, created this indecisive candle. If I look on the daily, and I was looking at this area, which the market did reject off and did come into to hit the level and then went higher, and now it is coming down again. So I'll be looking to take out the market, to take out last week's low right here, because it's still bearish and we're now moving lower. Last week closed bearish, so I'm going to remove all these annotations so we can clean up the chart and see what's what. And yeah, let me just mark the next point to target, which would be here for me. And then if we breach below this level right here, will be the next level that I'm going to be aiming for. So let's see where the higher probability scenario is in this case. Again, remembering that there is Aussie news, and last week we ended up with this little consolidation here. Now, the much better price to trade from would be a break of this range into this zone right here, and then it would be the sell. So what I'm looking at is this high to this low, and the retracement which falls in with this zone into the 61.8 area, and possibly a little bit beyond. We may wick into this area a little bit higher. And if that happens and we get a nice reversal price action, then we'll be looking to just make our way into the downside, which is this area right here, which falls at the 0.888 level or so, and lower still than that. So here's that even lower point, but this one is a good 250 pips away, so quite a way away. And another price point I'll pay attention to is 0.88, which is here, because that's a whole number, significant number, and that is also a number to pay attention to, levels that you want to watch out for in the market. Okay, that's the Aussie CAD. Right, let's move on to the next one. I'm going to go to, which one should we go to? Let's go to CAD Yen. So we've got Aussie CAD, another CAD pair, and with oil, I am still leaning towards bullishness. So bullishness on oil means potential bullishness on CAD. So therefore, bullishness on CAD would be a weak Aussie CAD, and bullishness on CAD would mean a bullish CAD Yen, because of the strength in the CAD. So CAD Yen has been going higher, creating higher highs, higher lows. Last week we created this funny candle here that just closed bullish with a bit of strength, and the week before that we left this week to the downside. So we do have this indication that we may be overall, in terms of a balance of probabilities, to the bullish side. Let's zoom out on the monthly. We have this level here, right here, which the market is bounced off from, and we are almost at the moment. Now I'm also going to take this wick here. So as you can see, we bounced off that. So we may be bouncing off this level right here and making a retracement. So this is definitely not the highest probability trade, and you do really want to be careful on this one if you're trading it bullish, because, well, we really don't know where the market is going, if it is going higher and breaching this level, or actually going to make that pullback on the higher time frame. Now, how to approach this? Let's have a think. We had this pullback right here, which did bounce from, and now we're having this break. We had a break of these highs. The market closed and looks like it's creating this retracement right here. Now, if we create another bullish candle after this candle, which is Friday from the previous week, this could be a swing, and there might be a potential on the lower time frame. If I go to the 4-hour, maybe a potential to trade into this level right here, which is the 106.4, which I marked out on the higher time frame, and I do not know if the market will go beyond that because we are sitting at this level. Now, the other probability, or the other scenario I should say, is that if we breach this level, this low, and then we head lower, and if that happens, then I'll be looking at a retracement into this zone right here. And that could produce a scenario depending on the price action, and also depending on the news. If I'm not mistaken, there is some yen news later in the week that could produce some price action and some volatility to go lower. And the lower would be this low, and then lower still would be this low right here, which, if you look on the higher time frame, are significant levels where we've got swings in the market, and that's where the liquidity is sitting. So it's a tricky one, this one. Really not my favorite, and yeah, I'm gonna have to be careful with this one and see how it goes. There's also possibility that if you look at even the 1 hour time frame, we can have a retracement into this gap here, or a deeper one into this gap here, and then from here, if we do see that price action, we may have a little bit more upside. But again, not favoring it at the moment. It's not very clear. Really want to see that swing, clear this trend line, and then go higher. So yeah, like I said, not the highest probability at the moment, either on the weekly, based on the monthly time frame, and on the daily. So none of them are really showing great setup. So if you want to see what a setup looks like when you need to be careful with it, then this is really one of those scenarios. But the fact that we are bullish on oil prices, and that would hint at bullishness for CAD. So there's a slight bias towards the buy side on the CAD yen. All right, next, what I'm going to look at is another minor pair, which is pound Swiss. Now, if I'm not mistaken, on pound Swiss on previous week, I did look at this zone as a possible sell. Let's just delete this one for previous week. Delete these from the chart so we don't get distracted. Okay, so I think I was looking at this area right here to short from, and what happened was basically the market did not get there, so there was no setup on that one, and we just continued lower and lower. And that's what happened last week. I had this slow, very persistent move down, not much happening there, and no setup. So we did close lower. We closed the week lower than last week. So again, the probability, the scenario to look at is on the sell side. Now, if I look at this swing low here, that will be the next target, and then the target after that will be the next low right here. So now I'll go down to a low time frame. I would still really much prefer for price to come up here. That would be a much better price and a much higher probability for the market to short from, but it may not want to do that. It may head down just like it did last week, lower and lower. So the thing is that two issues here. One is that the market is very close to these levels, to these target points. So because of that, we may see a run down, and then this creates a reversal back up. And if it does that, then this would not be a trade and not be a setup, because then the market would have hit the target levels and hit the price points that we're looking at, which means that if it's already done the move, then it's already made the move, and we're just too late. We just can't do anything with it. The market has done what it's done, and it's accomplished its goals. So what I would prefer, if that does not happen and we don't reach there and we do go higher, then I would still like a nice higher price before shorting the market. And of course, we need to time it right, and I do believe that we've got some pound news on several days this week, so we may see some real volatility in the pound. Let's see how it goes, and we'll just have to monitor price action again and see that. If the market does this, then we'll look to short. If it doesn't and it just collapses down or does anything else or just starts ranging, then this will be one to leave out. So again, this one is a bit of a lower probability scenario. Okay, that's pound Swiss. All right, next I'm going to go to, let's go to gold. And if I'm not mistaken, last week, if you were with me, I was looking at gold and looking to short. I had a short bias because of the strength of the dollar. And once again, you can see that the market did indeed go lower, but it was quite indecisive, wasn't it? It was a very slow move down day by day. This would have really caught out many traders. Many traders would have been doubting their moves. But we were looking at a short. So here's was the start of the week, and there was a lot of choppiness, a lot of volatility here. You can see a very slow move down and then a very sharp move up before the continuation down once more. So it's a tricky one. So what can we do here with gold? Well, the bias continues to the downside. So with that, there's again two scenarios. I don't know if you can see this, but we are in an overall sort of choppy market. What would be the high probability scenario here? Well, we'd like to see more lows broken, and that would indicate more weakness. So for sure, this low, the low of previous week, would need to be broken. And if that's the case, the move down, and then next will be a break of the week before that. And if we do see that push down, then again, a higher price into this zone level here would be a possible scenario, and a higher probability sell setup. Let me just delete this line. Okay. Would be a higher probability sell setup because we're now pushing further into the downside, and the next downside target would be this obvious low right here at, what is this one? 1787. That's what we'd be looking at. If I zoom out on the weekly, the next target after that would be this obvious low here, and we'll see what happens. So we're quite way away from that. And what I'm considering is that this is a swing point right here, even though it does look a little bit uncertain with all these wicks, but it did close lower. So we've got this low last week closing lower than previous week, week before that, and a week before that. Yeah, so it's been previous whole month of price action is closed lower. So the fact that we've closed that much lower is an indication to the downside as well. That's what I'm looking at in gold. Now, there's also the danger and the possibility that we're going to keep ranging and we're going to keep moving between these highs and lows on the short term. So we'll have to see how it goes. Now, if we break previous week's high, which is here, that would invalidate the sell scenario for sure. And then we'll have to see how price action develops from there. But at the moment, leaning to the downside, leaning to the sell as being the slightly higher probability on gold. Okay, now let me move on to oil. Something we've been covering the last few weeks, haven't we? I think you probably remember, because if you've been here with me on these past few weeks, then you will see me covering oil quite a few times. So a week before, we were looking at this area right here, which didn't work out, and the market headed lower and lower. Now let's delete the annotations. They're no longer relevant here. We've broken new lows, and just as always, let's best start with the higher time frame. Now we can see that we have been getting higher highs and higher lows, and the market is still, I would say, in a slightly bullish environment, although now it's coming back into this middle point of this very, very high time frame range. So between this low and this high, we're about the middle point right here. So now that we're heading lower, and the previous weeks we have some downside action, now that we're heading lower, we're getting a nice cheaper price from this whole range right here. So still bullish despite that very heavy sell-off in the past couple of weeks. Now, what can we see from here? At the moment, what I'm looking at here, if you can spot it, is this low right here, this very significant low. And if the market breaks this low, which at the moment I don't see it, but if it does, then I'll be looking at lower prices on oil. And I have to consider that, even though it's not the favored outcome. We'll see if the market does that, we'll let it do what it does. If it does that, then I'll have to reconsider the whole scenario. So because this is a significant low point, then that would indicate something else happening. But you can see that from this point on, the market ran really high. We created this pin bar and lots of momentum to the upside. And that's why I'm keeping my eye on this significant low right here. Okay, so now I'll go to the lower time frame, and with the bullish bias in mind, what I'm gonna look at is this low to this high, and we had a very deep retracement right here. So from here, with this discounted price, this cheap price in mind, I'm looking at a push higher in oil. Let's look at the 4-hour. We have a bit of ranging movement here. So the market is accumulating orders here. It's ranging. It's kind of in a phase where it is waiting and just preparing for the move. Now, the move that we expect is higher prices, as I was just saying. So with higher prices, we'd expect to see highs being broken in the short term. So we've had these highs being broken, and the next high I'd expect to be broken is this one that sticks out over here. Now, there's two ways to approach this. You could go the slightly riskier way and the safer way. So the riskier way would be to not wait and just buy the market, or if you see a push down to an even cheaper price, to buy from a cheaper price into the next obvious highs, where these would be targets. And of course, if you're not waiting for the market to show you the direction because it's accumulated at the moment, then obviously it will be a slightly riskier. But because it's at a cheaper price overall for within this range, within this whole range here, then it is high probability anyway. But the safer trade, for me at least, would be to wait for the market to go beyond this high, clear this high, and then retrace, and then continue on its overall upward movement based on the higher time frame of the market. So this is the two scenarios I'll be looking at, and if there is a reversal on the lower time frame sometime in the week, usually middle of the week is a point to look at on oil. That's a little tip. Wednesday, we usually have oil numbers, and Thursday, key days. Let's see how it goes. So I want to see a nice push up. At the moment, it's just a little accumulation range here. So it is a bit uncertain, and if you do find yourself, actually, as a side note, being uncertain, then you do want to wait for more price action for the market to develop and show you its hand. At the moment, there is, like I said, a little bit of uncertainty in terms of where the markets are going. So it's just it's a waiting game, and it's patience, as always. You probably already know that. It's a psychological game. Right, that is oil. Let's move on. Last but not least, I usually end up with crypto, with Bitcoin. So yeah, let's end with that now. Bitcoin once again. And as we spoke about, I think last week, we were looking at this possible area right here to short from, which the market didn't. And the previous week, we ended up in a range, which you can see this little tiny bit of price action right here after the week before that, this huge movement down. Let's zoom out, look on the higher time frame. I'm even going to go to the monthly here just to see a nice, clearer picture. Let me just adjust it so that it's a bit clearer. Okay, I think that will have to do. Right, so we've entered the 20k level, a nice big whole number, and this was the level where we're looking to bounce from, and we've just about missed that this sort of zone here, and I'll be looking to clear that and then go into this zone right here. So if I just zoom in for you, and we've got this zone, this high here, which would be a possible future zone of so-called support resistance, so the market may reach further down into that area. So definitely looking to come down into this mark here, which is the 19, just about 19,300, 19,500, something like that. If I look on the weekly, we've had this obvious bearishness, so going to look to continue the overall bearishness of the market, not going to fight it, going to go with the flow that is obvious at the moment, and that is the sell. Delete this, let me delete this, clear everything. Much easier to look at the chart when it's all nice and clean, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so here's that high where the market moved away from. Here's the low we're at the moment, and if I take a fib from the high to the low, I can see that here is the 61.8 level, here's the 78 level, and here's the midpoint of 50. Now let me just delete the fib. So what does that mean? Well, I'd expect a nice retracement, and the retracement will go to the 50 and more likely 61.8, perhaps fill this gap right here in a price before heading down lower, but we are not even close there right now. So crypto does move quickly, so we may get there quickly too. We may see a nice, very fast push up, and then we'll have to evaluate and see the price action at these points, especially this zone here, 61.8 and 78, this gap. Let's have to see what happens. Yeah, we're not there yet, are we? So we'll wait for that to happen, wait for the price action, and wait for it to reach. And then when it gives out that nice, expensive price, that's where we want to sell from. And going down into this zone right here. Now, of course, have to account for the fact that that may not happen, and the market may do a straight drop once again. If it continues to drop, then I'm going to look for the pullback, just like I did in the previous weeks. It never pulled back, and this week it hasn't pulled back yet, so I'm just gonna have to let it go. There was no trade. This again, another patience move, and the market was just very heavy. That's just the way it goes. Sometimes you just can't have every move. It's whatever you plan, whatever you do, the market will always do what it wants to do. Let me go to the weekly, and let me just do it a bit clearer. So here's one scenario here into this zone, and if we get a break lower, then a pullback into here, into this zone, which is the price of this low right here, these lows, pull back into there. Just draw it a bit more accurately for you, otherwise It's going to look very messy. Pull back into this zone will be the next short opportunity. So I see that as being a little bit higher probability, and then it'll be a short. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Just delete that. Pull back and then a short into the level that we're looking at as a significant level where there was previous resistance, or may turn into support, so to speak, and that is the 13,500 level, and that will be the short scenario. So that is Bitcoin for you, and yeah, we'll see how it works out. It's been very heavy, and we may not see the pullback. You can see every time, if you actually have a look, we've seen a drop and a shallow retracement and a very heavy drop, shallow retracement and another heavy drop, and we may get yet again another shallow retracement. It may not even go to the 50%. So we'll see what happens. 50% coincides with this wick here, which could be this level, but of course the more expensive the price, the better the probabilities to sell from, the better the risk reward, and obviously prefer to sell it from a nice expensive price, obviously, than this cheap price here, and it can reduce your risk. So those are the markets for the week. Watch out once again for any news on the economic calendar. Yeah, we have some dollar news, some speeches, have some pound news, and some Aussie news as well. So look out for that, because that will be affecting. We've got Bitcoin price in dollars, we've got gold obviously in dollars, we've got pound Swiss here, which is a pound pair. The oil priced in dollars. We've got Aussie CAD here, which is related to oil and the CAD, and the Aussie news, which would be the Aussie part of it, Aussie dollar and Aussie dollar here, pair. So we've got both Aussie news and dollar news, so we may see some extra volatility in the Aussie dollar, and again dollar rand here. So that would also relate to dollar news for this week, with the, I think it's some speeches happening from the Fed. All right then, so that's your week for this week. Hope that helps, and do trade safe as always. Always manage your risk and pick the setups that look higher probability to you. Do not risk too much. Do not spread yourself too thin, and yeah, focus on the best setups. Yeah, it's a game of patience. So remember that we have been in some choppy price action lately, and we really want to see the market show its hand and produce a really much clearer scenario. So if it's not clear, you may want to wait it out. You may want to just kind of, you know, put your hands under your thighs and just sit on your hands and refrain from entering. But when you do see that setup, then obviously high probability means you want to enter and let the market do its thing. All right. So as always, thank you very much. Thanks for joining me and being here. Good luck for this trading week, and see you again next week as always. All right. Bye for now.